All right, so we've done some work with colors. Um, Now let's talk about how we might insert images into our file, into our web page, because of course, web pages without images can get kind of boring. So how do we do that? Well, before we can do that, we need to have an actual image to actually put in there, right? So, and before we get that image, let's make sure we know where our page is. Again, it's very important to know where we're saving things on our drive. When we go to put an image on our page, we want to make sure that our image is in the same folder as our HTML file. You can put it in other folders. It complicates things. So for starters, we want to try to keep everything simple. Let's keep it all in the same folder. So where is that folder? A good way, again, to remember where your folder is at is to come over here and right-click on your file and then click Reveal in File Explorer. So if you click Reveal in File Explorer, it's going to come up here and it will show you exactly where that file is located. So in this case, it's located under my documents under the folder of web, which makes sense. If we click on documents, there's web, and there we go. So that's where our file is located. So when we go to get our image, this is where we want to put our image. So let's bring up Google and let's find an image. Now you can pick whatever you want for an image. I'll just do something like, Spike the Bulldog. And so you can some pictures of there's the original Spike the Bulldog from Tom and Jerry. That's not the one I was talking about. So we'll put Gonzaga at the end, I suppose. That will narrow it down. There we go. There's some pictures of Spike. So once you find the picture you want, you can do a right-click Save Image As. And you'll notice when it saves, you're going to have your file name and your extension. This is why it's super important to make sure that you have extensions showing. And I'll show you again, we'll go through how to make sure that is working for you. But you should at least see it on this page. Make sure you leave this extension alone, but you might want to change the name over here because the name of the file is going to be very useful in trying to know what it is, right? If we just call it download.jpg, which is what it originally was, we're not going to know what it is just by looking at the file name. So I'm going to call this one spike.jpg. You can pull whatever image down you want. It doesn't matter. Just make sure you leave this alone and make this something that is recognizable. I also strongly recommend you don't put spaces in file names. It can add to some complexity when you're coding in some places. So it's just a good practice to just not put spaces. Some people put underscores. So if you want to do like Spike the Bulldog, you could do underscores like that. I always like to go on the simple side and not make them too long if I don't have to. So I'm just going to call it Spike. Make sure it's in the same folder, right, that your HTML file is in, and then hit Save. And if that works, you'll see it'll pop up right here on Explorer. So that's a good sign. That means it's in the same folder. Everything's working. Now, how do we get this on the page? We simply come down here and we use the IMG tag. So in this case, we would type IMG space src equals. And then in these quotes, you specify the name of the file name, which is spike.jpg. Then we go ahead and close our tag and then save it. And then if we load our page, you should see that your image comes up. Now, some of you may find that the picture is way too large. Some of you may find that it's too small, right? If it's too small, you can enlarge it. If it's too big, you can shrink it. This is already looking kind of blurry here, so we probably don't want to enlarge this much more than it is. So enlarge with caution, right? But if you need to set the size of the image, you can set it in pixels. It's just a property within your image tag of width and height. You do width equals 50, height equals 50. And we'll go ahead and save it, and you can see that'll shrink it down a little bit. So you may have to kind of play. And again, the zoom key does affect this, right? That's probably why it was so blocky. But you can play with the height and width to get it the correct size that you want. Now I mentioned we needed to make sure that file extensions were showing. So if you haven't done that yet, make sure you go down to your File Explorer. And again, an easy way to get that, you can just right-click on one of your files and go to Reveal in File Explorer. If you don't see the .html and the .jpeg here, right, you're going to want to turn that on because you can't just specify Spike. You have to put the .jpeg. You have to specify the entire name of the file. And by default, Windows and Mac OS actually will hide that from you. So in Windows, how do we do this? On this folder again, we click on View, and then over here there's a file name extensions. We want to make sure that's checked. If it's unchecked, you see it doesn't show you the extensions. You can usually guess by looking over here, but not always. So we want to make sure we turn it on by hitting File Name Extensions, and then we can see it. And then we can easily know what the actual file name is that we want to insert into our web page.